ViksNow. I am Dustin Baker. We are here on a Friday trip. We have less than 5 weeks until mandatory minicamp. That's kind of the next big thing for all players. Of course, there's rookie minicamp next week, about a week from now. But I want to pick the brains. Some of my guests here. Janik Eckardt is here. He writes at VikingsTerritory, and Tyler Ireland is our producer. We're going to jump right into this. Janik, I'm starting with you. I got 3 rumors. And some of them are, I use that loosely because we're going to talk about J.J. McCarthy too. But Janik, the first thing that was extremely interesting that came out of the draft was from Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk, who is a Vikings fan. A little outlandish at times. Sometimes he gets it right, sometimes he gets it wrong, but that happens to all of us. He said that the Vikings tried to trade up to number 6 or so to draft Malik Neighbors, which I guess the assumption is that they would assume J.J. McCarthy or Michael Penix would fall to them. Do you believe, sir, that there was any atmosphere where the Vikings would trade up for another wide receiver?
No, I don't buy it. That's the strangest thing I've ever heard. Like, our team has some flaws. We need a defensive tackle. Edge rusher was cool to get. Quarterback, of course. And we don't need a wide receiver. We have 2 really good ones. Now, I guess you could have made the case to draft one at 23 or something, but to mortgage 2 or more picks or first-round picks for Neighbors, that didn't make sense. Although Neighbors is really good, but you needed a quarterback and not a wide receiver.
Do you think that if there is a shred of integrity to that reporting, that they were doing it to scare the Giants or something? Or do you think it would just the communication wires were crossed with the reporting?
Oh yeah, probably like Sean Payton, just tricking the Giants into taking best player available. I don't know. So yeah, I don't buy that at all.
Okay, well, that's fair because that was my reaction when I first saw the video because Mike Florio posted a video saying, "You're not going to believe it. It was the Vikings." And I'm like, what? So Tyler, to you, do you have a different take to this, that the Vikings wanted to become the richest aerial attack probably in the history of the sport?
Well, I certainly think that they viewed Neighbors as a blue chip prospect. And I think anytime you have a blue chip prospect, you're always at least considering the idea of drafting them, regardless of the position. That being said, trading up to 6 to get a player that the Giants would wound up taking anyways doesn't really, the math doesn't add up there. Like, if the Vikings wanted to trade up for Neighbors, they would have to go ahead of the Giants, not trade with the Giants. Because May went 3 and if the Giants don't have any interest in McCarthy, then who else would they go for? Are they going to trade down to 11 and then miss out on a Dunze who winds up going 9? So to me, it doesn't make any sense. I guess the only devil's advocate argument you could make for that is if Justin Jefferson negotiations were going so terribly to the point where you needed to establish leverage against him by drafting another LSU wide receiver, but even that's so far-fetched, and I don't think Kwesi is toying around with Jefferson saying, "Yeah, you're good but not great. We're only willing to give you this." Now, they let Cousins and Hunter walk. They're going to give Justin Jefferson whatever he wants. They're going to unload the Brinks truck for him.
Janik, do you think the landing spot for Neighbors in New York, are you a little skittish about that, I guess, from a fantasy football perspective, or do you think that will pan out no matter who is the quarterback?
So I'm so high on Neighbors. I don't think that he's going to get his value is going down just because he's playing for the Giants. No, I'm also not. I don't think Daniel Jones is as bad as everyone thinks he is. He's all right. He's not great or anything, but he's all right. He can get him the ball, and he's so good. He's gonna get the ball for sure. So his role is gonna be high, and for fantasy purposes, I think he's gonna be just fine.
If Daniel Jones remains as is, which is decent, and I guess upright would be the case this year, it feels like Neighbors would have kind of a Chris Olave introduction to the league where you don't have, elite quarterbacks or anything close to it throwing you the ball, but you're still racking up at least 1,000 yards and a handful of touchdowns. What about Neighbors for you, Tyler? Do you enjoy the fit in New York, or do you think that's going to hurt his stock?
I really like the fit. And
Okay.
it's not just because, Malik Neighbors is a talented player and Daniel Jones isn't as bad as people make him out to be. It's because, like, last year they drafted Jalen Hyatt in the second round. He was really promising. He just didn't get a ton of snaps, but, like, the speed jumped off, when you watched him. And it looks like he's going to be more involved in the offense this year. They still have Wan'Dale Robinson at your slot receiver. So that is, like, not a terrible top 3 receiving core of Wan'Dale, Hyatt, and Neighbors. The offensive line, maybe I'd be a bit more concerned about for the Giants, and what's going to happen with Waller? Is he done? I don't know, but at least your top 3 wide receivers aren't that bad. I'm not really sure if wide receiver is a need for them anymore after the last couple of years and how they addressed that in the draft. So, the Giants could be a surprising team again, if Daniel Jones plays well and they give him enough time to, make the right decision out of the pocket, then yeah, I'm pretty high on it.
When I see Giants fans talking about their offensive line, it reminds me of the Vikings pre-Darisaw, where it's like just constant, I guess, resignation to your fate or cynicism. So I hear you on the Giants offensive line. All right, here's what I want to talk about next, and this surprised me. I saw a Bleacher Report graphic, and I had to go verify it, and it was from DraftKings. So in terms of the sportsbooks odds, it was valid. Tyler, the week 1 starting quarterback odds for these Minnesota Vikings, JJ McCarthy is plus 150 for a betting line, and Sam Darnold is minus 200. And to give context to the viewers, plus 150 is not that much of an upset. For example, the Denver Nuggets are plus 300 to win the NBA Finals, in June, and that's not that far-fetched. So what are you thinking? Does Vegas know something that we don't? Because I think most of us assume Darnold will start week 1 unless there's this summer from heaven from McCarthy. What are you thinking, Tyler, on those McCarthy odds and QB1 timetable in general?
Yeah, McCarthy could play like an absolute angel in training camp in preseason, and it's still not going to change the fact that they're not going to start him week 1. If McCarthy is starting week 1 and something horrible happened to Sam Darnold, he maybe got mono again. But let me phrase it like this too. If something happened to Darnold, they would go to Mullins. If something happened to Mullins, they would either sign a free agent like Ryan Tannehill, or if they have enough faith in Hall, they would go to Hall. Under no circumstance will McCarthy be seeing the field at all this entire season.
Oh my God.
Everything would have to go absolutely wrong for that to happen. The same way that everything had to go absolutely wrong for Jaren Hall to even see the field last year to begin with. In the Vikings' ideal world, they're going to spend the entire year redshirting McCarthy. Just, hey, welcome to Minnesota. Get to know people's names. Get to slowly acclimate yourself to this offense. And, that is the right decision. And it's not an indictment on McCarthy. It's just a matter of quarterback development. And I would have said the same exact thing for Drake May.
Okay.
It doesn't matter how talented the quarterback is. The slow way to develop quarterbacks, the way that Green Bay did it with Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers, is always the best way to go about it. So not an indictment on the player. It's just getting him acclimated and up to speed to things here in Minnesota.
What do you, Tyler, need? You're notoriously low on McCarthy, at least compared to most. What do you need to see from him in general? Just steady production in year 2 and 3? Like how does he prove it to you?
Aside from just the basic prerequisite of, having learned the offense, I would like to see him display more touch and layering on some of those deeper throws. Kevin O'Connell's going to do everything in his power to avoid JJ McCarthy getting into like 3rd and 7+. And I know the stats on a limited sample size were really good when he was in certain situations, red zone, 3rd and long. But at the end of the day, sometimes you're just going to be in a 3rd and 19, and sometimes you're just going to have to trust that Justin Jefferson is going to win, even when he's double teamed, and you just need to get the ball to Jefferson, or you just need to get the ball to Addison. Give your receiver a chance. Is he capable of doing that? Because it feels like every throw that he makes is always on the line. And when you're like 19 yards from the first down, you can't just throw it on a line. You got to be able to display better ball placement than what he did at Michigan. So that's mainly the one thing that I would look for. And the reason I'm, not confident that he's going to start right away, aside from the Vikings' preference to develop him, is because that's not something that is taught in a short time frame. That is something he slowly has to like change the way he throws the ball. So it's Rome wasn't built in a day. So
Okay.
It'll take time.
Janik, plus 150 odds are really like almost even Steven. So does Vegas know something we don't, or are they just looking at Stroud from last year? What say you on that money line for McCarthy to start out of the gate?
I wonder if they just put the line low to cash in on bettors who are high on McCarthy right after the draft. But I don't think he's going to start week 1. They just don't need to. They have Sam Darnold. He's all right. It's just like Daniel Jones. He's not New York Jets Sam Darnold anymore. He has been fine in the last 2 years when he got the chance. They just don't need to start McCarthy and rush him onto the field. They just can stick with Darnold for a few weeks. I don't know if he's gonna redshirt all year. I don't think Vikings want to do that, but I wouldn't be shocked either.
Let's see. I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase that. So if he does see the field, do you think it's because, hey, they're 3-7 and why not? Or it's December and it's the week 16 and 17, give him some playing time like Mahomes in 2017. Is that the situation that you're eyeing? Or injuries, or what is it?
There's probably 3 reasons to start him. One is obviously if he's like really good and better than Darnold, and they think they can make the playoffs with him, and Darnold is just bad, and then you're gonna start him. The second one is obviously injuries, and third one is okay, season is over. You're 3-7. Let's put McCarthy in and give him some more valuable experience for next year to get a head start in the second year. But there's just no need to make a decision, to make the change to McCarthy if Darnold is all right and McCarthy isn't any better.
Okay, let me ask you guys this, because I've said this now probably about 5 times on the show and other shows. Tyler, do you agree with me that just because the Vikings are the Vikings, that Sam Darnold is probably going to play really good, and then we're going to divide into these sections that say why would you bench Darnold when we are 7-5 or something like that? Like, does that feel like a talker that's coming to us, or are you low on Darnold on the whole?
Yeah, let me put it like this. If I'm a betting man, I will easily bet my life savings away on the fact that no matter what happens with the Vikings quarterbacks, not everyone's going to be happy about it. There's always going to be someone complaining, oh, they should put McCarthy in. Oh, we should ride with the hot hand in Sam Darnold or whoever it is. So it really doesn't matter how good or bad Sam Darnold performs. There's always just going to be quarterback controversy because you drafted a guy in the top 10 and he's not on the field yet. So really the fan reaction is just going to be a mess regardless. I will say, this is the God Emperor quarterback of the United States we're talking about here in Sam Darnold. That's like an actual nickname for him because Jets fans are absolutely crazy. So, I could see him playing, maybe not like Cousins level. I think that's really unrealistic because Cousins was really solid for us for a number of years. But you remember that one game with Sam Bradford where he just threw for 400 yards against the Saints in that
Vividly.
home opener? That's exactly what I see Sam Darnold doing. It's just surprisingly good, given a player of his caliber. If he can just play like Sam Bradford when Sam Bradford was healthy for us, then I think that's a win.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody on this show is a big Darnold guy, but I'm convinced that the way that I've done this since 1996 is you think a thing about the Vikings like, well, surely this couldn't happen, and then it happens, and then you're in some sort of little controversy. This would be a good controversy because you'd have one good quarterback that's looking like Baker Mayfield out there, and then one who's chilling, 21 years old, waiting to play. Janik, can you see that at all? That Darnold is simply too productive, looking like Mayfield from last year, that, the McCarthy crowd is upset that there's no reason to play him?
Sam Darnold, I can see him throw for like 20, 25 touchdowns if he's just playing every game and be all right. He can be serviceable, but he's not going to be great. And it's my favorite doomsday theory on Twitter already. But what if Sam Darnold is just an all-pro? What do we do now? What do we do then?
Mm-hmm.
Do we just keep him then? That's just my favorite.
That's what I'm getting
our
at.
quarterback is great. Mm-hmm. Oh no, what are we doing?
That's precisely what I'm getting at. It would be really wild if he was just absolutely fantastic, and everybody that was speculated that he needed to be in the right system is correct, and the guy looks like the 3rd overall pick from 6 years ago. I don't think it'll be quite that shiny. I think the upside of my little theory is looking like Baker Mayfield, where he's gritty, and the team is in the playoff hunt, and then you very obviously wouldn't go to McCarthy. But I've just watched this team for almost 3 decades, and it feels like that's a storyline that's coming to us that, I don't know, by, let's say, week 10, Darnold has 20 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and you're like, how can we can't bench this guy? We're right in the mix for a wild card. Detroit's running away with the division. It feels like it's coming to us. All right, let's talk about left guard. I'm curious on your guys' reply on this. Janik, the Vikings have not re-signed Dalton Reisner. Alec Lewis, who's been on this show from The Athletic, hinted in an article this week that his asking price is a little bit too high, which makes sense because Drew Rosenhaus is now representing him. Rosenhaus, excuse me. So are you in the camp, Janik, that Blake Brandel will be the left guard week 1, or will they explore like Greg Van Roten from the Raiders? He's a free agent, because it's really down to that guy, Reisner, or Brandel.
It's a really weird situation because Brandel, he came into the league as a tackle, and he was a backup for a few years, and they just switched him to backup guard. And last year he got in on like 125 snaps or something at right guard. His PFF grade of 55 isn't that encouraging. He had the same grade in the previous year as Derisov's backup. It's really weird. I think they try to get another guy in. Dan Feeney, who they signed as a backup in free agency, he's also been bad when he's on the field. So it's really weird to have an offensive line in front of a rookie quarterback potentially, with a player like Blake Brandel, who's a fine backup, but you don't want him to be on the field. So I guess they try to acquire another player.
They must like him if they do not, because that's the only thing that would make sense. And another thing I've said on the show 100 times is I think the Vikings coaching staff, this version of it, not the last one, deserves the benefit of the doubt when it comes to offensive line decision making. But that's just my take. Tyler, Blake Brandel, week 1, Dalton Reisner, Greg Van Roten, or somebody else?
Yeah, it's probably going to be Brandel with the contract that they gave him this offseason, where it's like cheap starter contract. But I really don't understand the appeal with him, particularly at guard. I'm going to share my screen here. I've got, let's see, we're going to open up this tab. So his weaknesses on his scouting report, right? Like it says he's a likely tackle to guard position switch because he played at left tackle in college, but he's just kind of like a smaller guy. But the weaknesses say that he's the core strength's below average, his below average upper body power, like not a great athlete. So that's not someone you want to switch to guard. If they're going to be pushed around, that's my main concern with him, is that, you're pretty much, you're hoping a really good swing tackle can be a starting caliber guard, and I don't see that for him at all. So it puzzles me a bit. So hopefully they re-sign Reisner. I don't think that'll happen, but you have to wonder if Brandel struggles out the gate. What's their plan B? Because Reisner might not be there to be their plan B if Brandel does end up struggling.
Yeah, the way it's looking now, it would be the guy that Janik was just poo-pooed on, and Dan Feeney, the guy with the sweet mustache and mullet. Otherwise, they have some like Henry Bird, Tyrese Robinson, and then
throwing Juergens out there right away. Like,
it's
I don't see it.
the good stuff on the offensive line doesn't happen to us like that. So I would be skeptical on that one about the coaching staff. It was like, we're doing Juergens, we're gonna be fine. I would bet it's Brandel, and it doesn't sound like anybody's too enthusiastic about that. But with Reisner, I guess there's always a chance of a kumbaya. And I want to talk to that guy at some point because I want to ask him why. 2 free agencies back-to-back years. The guy seems like he's a lovable guy, a locker room dude. I don't think that he wants to be utterly rich, and it just doesn't make any sense that 2 years in a row he's on the outside looking in.
Well, we'll look at it like this: is like Kwesi did not want to pay Ezra the money that Ezra wanted, and I'll have to pull up what he got from Jacksonville. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I mean, it was pretty rich for a guard.
I think it was 9.5 per year.
9.5 per year. So I'm guessing Reisner probably wants like $7 million a year or something along that range. And I don't think Kwesi values guard enough, especially with the way that the Vikings have been able to develop offensive linemen since Kevin O'Connell arrived, to where he feels comfortable spending $7 million on just an average guard, really solid in pass pro, but just like athletically speaking, Reisner is like nothing special. And, in the run game could use some improvement there. So I think Kwesi's trying to moneyball that position a little bit too much, and we might see the consequences if Brandel ends up being terrible right off the bat, and now Garrett Bradbury is stuck with Ed Ingram and Brandel.
Yeah, the Reisner thing about his, so he was the opposite of what Vikings fans have been used to. Like, he can pass protect, but then he can't really run block, and we're so used to the other way around that we just love the guy because he pass protects, especially with Kirk as the quarterback, because that's all we asked for. So I think that's why we fell in love with him. I don't, for the life of me, when you pull up his PFF, I'm like, why do we think this guy is Jesus again? I mean, it's just totally mid. But in his defense, he was good in pass pro. All right, gentlemen, we got a bolt. We're going to have fans on here in a couple minutes. Janik, we appreciate you joining us. We'll talk to you next week about something. Tyler, we'll talk to you in a few minutes with these 3 Vikings fan guests. All right.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
All right. Thanks, Janik.